Hello, animators and artists, and welcome to another Toon Boom interview. Josh Pinker is a 2D animation artist originally from New Jersey. He graduated from Lesley University in 2014. Since then, Josh has contributed as an animator on projects such as Cyanide and Happiness, Teen Titans Go, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Corner Gas Animated, and The Wildcrats, among other shows produced for TV. Josh is currently living in my hometown of Toronto, working for Portfolio Entertainment as an animator on a new show for Adult Swim called Doomsday Brothers. In his spare time, he managed to self-publish and release a book, Your Animated Journey, which is a self-help guide for artists interested in working in the animation industry. Joshua, welcome to the stream.
Thank you so much. I'm super nervous.
Well, I mean, we do have a lot of people watching us, but we brought you here today to talk about careers in animation. So let's start by talking about your career. You mentioned that Portfolio Entertainment is letting us take a look at one of their rigs today. As an animator, what do you do with a rig like this?
So it wasn't actually Portfolio that was able to let me show the rig. I couldn't get to them in time. So it's actually no, it's totally fine. So this is a second show I'm working on. I'm working on two shows at the same time because I love animation that much. So this the second company I'm working for is Straight to Tell, and they're located in Atlanta. And I'm working on their web series called Drunken Rewind. And this is, I just started 2 weeks ago, and it's a PSA on about binge drinking and how drinking too much alcohol, like what it can do to your body. But it's like adult funny animation with like a sprinkle of like, oh yeah, this is educational. So it's been a lot of fun. So I have a rig from that, and I have an example of some animation from a previous scene that I just recently did. Yeah, so I'm excited to go through that and show a little bit examples of that, and talk about my book a little bit, and talk about animation. And we're in crazy times, and everyone, the animation industry is doing really well, so everyone should definitely still want to have the goal of being a part of it.
Yeah. So what does your day-to-day role as a freelance animator look like?
So like I said, I'm working for two companies, two different shows. So I'll work during the day. I'll work for Portfolio, working on Doomsday Brothers, which is going to be in Toronto. It's airing on Sunday on Adult Swim. And that's been really fun. And I've been working on that show since January. So with that show, we have the server, new episode that we start on. All the scenes are there. It gets broken up. Everyone has quotas. I usually do 1,500 frames, or like 40 to 50 seconds for 2 weeks. And I'll do that during the day. And we have an FTP where we download the files, open them up. It has the background, it has the character, it has the animatic. And I just go to town and just start animating, submit it, and then I get revisions back from supervisors. And then once it's all done, compress it, send it off. So that's during the day. And then at night and weekends, I'll work for the other show, Drunken Rewind, the PSA. And pretty much the same thing. The only difference is for Portfolio, I'm a senior level animator, just freelancing, kind of being like an extra hand. So I'm not a full-time employee with Portfolio. And with this other show, Drunken Rewind, with Straight to Tell, I'm actually the lead animator. So I'm the only animator for the whole season, which is really awesome because it's more responsibility, not only with just coming up with the acting, but it's my style and it's my animation put in throughout. So it really feels like it's everything I have put into it. And it's been a lot of fun. I just, like, last night I left a scene for the last minute. It was 13 seconds. I don't know how many frames. That's like 340 frames. And I had to do that all in one day because I left it for the last minute. And I was like, I don't have
That's pretty
time.
wild.
I don't have time to work on this tomorrow because I have a live Twitch interview with Toon Boom. So let me just try to crank this out today. So I got that done. But yeah, so I always get people like, how do you manage to do two shows at the same time? But it's time management, and I'm really fast and I'm really comfortable with using Toon Boom, and it's when you're working on two completely different things, you kind of get a break and a refresher when you open up the next project, so it doesn't feel like you're still doing the same job. But I love animation. And I hope that once everyone's done watching this live stream, they're like, I want to animate now.
So before we talk about your book, we just want to take a quick look at the rig that you brought. What are some of the features of this rig? And I guess I should say, so the show is animated using cutout techniques.
Yes. A lot of shows. So I'm not the best artist. Everyone's like, oh, you're an animation artist, so like you know how to draw. But really, it's like I rely so much on the program to do a lot of things for me, and I've been so lucky to be a part of shows where it is very like puppet based and hand drawn. Like the hand drawing is like not so much. Like I'll draw hands and like maybe different mouths and different eye shapes here and there, but the program does a lot of the work for me. But there's still like having the patience of like posing out every little thing and then animating, and you're always gonna get those glitches and trying to work out the glitches. So yeah, so this rig, I really like this rig. It's pretty simple, but it gets the job done. So this is Doug. He's the main character of the show. He's pretty much in every episode. And so we have the basic turnaround for his rig. And he has the mouth shapes already built in, and they kind of move the jaw with it, which is really nice. I always feel like just having the flat head and then the mouth just like moving on its own can look very flat and static. So having the jaw moving adds a lot of depth to the character. Things like the eyelids, they're built into the drawing substitution. And the eyebrows have deformers on them, so you can do simple things like arching up the eyes, or do a nice little S curve. It's kind of like confused, like and pupils, pretty standard, where they just get masked inside. And things, so the elbow, let me bring this rig out. So we have the arm. So the hand has drawing substitutions, pretty minimal. So I'll have to go in and draw hands, which I'm not the best at, but thank you so much to Alex, my animation director, he'll go in and draw me the right hands to copy. And we have a cuff on the inside, and this also has a deformer to like move with perspective. And the elbow comes out, so it's rounded, so you can get like those nice kind of bends, and you don't have to like do too much redrawing, and you can still bend it out to go with the elbow. And even with, again, with perspective, if we move this in, so we have the inside of the sleeve also, so it can work with the perspective when you're seeing the inside. Smooth that out a little bit better. So yeah, and you always get some artwork sticking out, but then when you render it, it'll be like way more cleaner. So yeah, and this is what I really love about the job. It's just I start on a job and it's like, here's the rig, here's the animatic, go. And it's kind of like a lot of like the first 2 weeks. It's like I've never worked on this character before, but I have to bring it to life and I have to do full animation on him. So yes, there is an animation guide that like kind of gives you breakdowns of like technical things, but one thing that's really lucky is that this season is actually season 3. So I had 2 other seasons on YouTube, which I could rewatch and go through to see like, okay, what are some of like the key poses for like the acting and how do they handle some of the arm stuff or like facial features. And it's pretty much it. Same thing with the knees are rounded, so you can do like easy leg bends. And same thing with the shorts. If we go in, here's the character's node. So it's really, this is like, if this isn't done, like I'll do this myself. This was done. But like just putting everything in a group and just having everything perfectly labeled, like this is an animator's dream because it's so easy to find things and everything's organized. Like I love this.
Yeah, the backdrops make a big difference.
Yeah, such a big difference. I love it. Let me just, I was just going to show that. Where am I going? Same thing with the leg underneath. There's like a cuff to go behind the leg when perspective, when you need to see like up the shorts as well. So yeah, so that's pretty much the rig. Yeah.
And where can people find this show?
So if you just go to YouTube and just type in Drunken Rewind, you'll find it. And on the company's website, Straight to Tell, they have a section where they show examples, and it's like a really nice page layout. I could probably bring it. Can you see this?
Yeah, hey, there it is.
Yeah. So here's like examples of it. So this is Straight to Tell's website. So it's really great. So the whole thing is like every PSA, it's like he'll have his ghost. So it's his ghost of when he's like super drunk comes to get him, and then he like shows him like this is what's happening to your liver. Like this is an example of what happens to you like when you drink so much you miss the date or something like that. So every episode's kind of just like him evaluating himself of when he drinks too much. It's really fun, just like some artwork. Here's this turnaround. A young binge drinker we can develop to reflect the extremely hungover aspiration of himself who warns him to drink water between beers. So here's examples. But yeah, it's been a really fun show, and it's a great opportunity. And one thing I felt like I found the job through LinkedIn, and when I saw like the quality, I was like, this looks like television quality. But then I was like, oh, it's a web series. So that was something I was really surprised about. So that made me really interested to want to work on it. And yeah, so that's been so much fun working on it. And even when I applied, they were like, you know, your portfolio is so strong. Like we usually give animation tests, but we'll just make like the first episode that you work on. That's kind of like the test. And halfway through, the director's like, you've been doing such a great job. Like, let's do a contract for the rest of the season. So it's been a great opportunity. I'm really happy that I connected with them. And again, I'm all the way in Toronto, and this is Straight to Tell is in Atlanta. And we just do video calls. We have a Slack website where we're communicating, and it's a breeze. Like it's never a headache. I'm making deadlines. Communication is golden, and it's been a really good production, a really good team to work with.
All right. So we talked about this recent career that you started at Straight to Tell. How would you describe your book, your animated journey, and what led you to make it?
Yes. So, Your Animated Journey is an ebook that somehow I found the time to write it. And As a gist, it's a self-help guide textbook for anyone that's interested in working in the animation industry. So if you're right out of school going into the industry, or if you're first, second year just starting out in the industry, it's the book is very helpful information to succeed and strive and be a professional in the industry. The book does not include how to animate because all that information can be found everywhere. You can go on Toon Boom's website. They have amazing tutorials. You can go there. You can go on YouTube, find tutorials, how to use the program, how to animate. And me myself, I'm the lead animator on this show. I'm a senior animator, but I still don't think that my animation is like this is how everyone should be animating and should know how to animate. So that's why I kept that completely out of the book, and I just focused on portfolios, resumes, networking, doing your research, interviews, pay rates, things like that, which are just as valuable of information to know and master as opposed to here's how I know how to animate, here's my portfolio. There's still so many more things that go into getting a career and being professional and getting more opportunities and getting promoted and working within the industry. So I felt like there's a gap right now with people coming out of school and entering in the industry. So I wanted to fill that gap of information as best I can and make it available to everyone who's really passionate about surviving and succeeding in their job.
Yeah. So I saw that you spoke with many different studio reps and artists who do very different jobs. Was there anything that they mentioned that changed the way you think about the animation job search?
Yeah. So at the end of my book, I have a Q&A section with probably over like 10 people. I have studio owners, studio recruiters, animation directors, riggers, animators, and they were super amazing because I asked them all specific questions to their career and they gave me back like all their knowledge and all their advice. And um, a lot of it worked well with what I was saying and what I knew because even like the recruiter that I have in the book, Christine, she hired me to work at Brown Bag. So I kind of went to her like, what are your do's and don'ts in an interview? And like a lot of it, it's like, oh, I did this. And this is like, I did the do list and I was able to get the job through her. So it's kind of really helpful information that isn't accessible easily anywhere else. And it's just good. Like to some people, it's like, oh, this is common sense. And to other people, it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So it's kind of, it's covering a nice broad audience. And I feel like you can go to animation school, but there's so many different tiers of positions. So the book kind of helps everyone, whatever job, whether I'm doing 2D, if you want to be a 3D animator, you still have to have a resume. You still have to go through an interview. You still have to take an animation test. And those are the things I talk about and try to help anyone get through it. And I really feel like that section is like the gem in my book, the Q&A, because it's really helpful information that everyone should read, and it complements everything that I wrote and have been saying in the book.
Yeah. So you currently work in Canada, but you are from the US. What do you like about the Canadian animation industry, and why might it be challenging for artists outside of Canada to find work up here?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Belleville, New Jersey. I love New Jersey, and I'll never lose my New Jersey accent. And that was pretty much the thing that harmed me in the beginning because I would go to Ottawa Animation Festival and I would go to a job fair, and the recruiters would see my portfolio and they'd be like, this is great, but I can tell from your Jersey accent that you're not from Canada, and we can only hire Canadians at this time. So I went through a long period where it was just no, 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 because being an American citizen. The reason why I wanted to go to Canada was because I always had the goal that I want to work in the animation industry being an animator. And a lot of people, one thing I didn't know of was outsourcing. And a lot of shows start in California where they'll do the storyboards, the character designs, they'll do the voice recording, and then it's off to Canada, off to Korea, off to Philippines, off to Mexico. And that was something I didn't know. So when I would be watching cartoons Saturday morning and then get to the end credits, and then I see Jam Filled, Brown Bag, DHX doing the animation. So I was like, okay, so everything that I want to work on is happening in Canada. So it's like I need to focus on that. So I was really lucky to get that opportunity. And the industry is so strong here that I started on the West Coast in Vancouver, Kelowna. Now being on the East Coast in Toronto, I love, like, within my first year, I worked for like 2, 3 studios, and it's just jumping around and everyone gets recycled and works the circuit. And that's what's really nice. And that's really like what you need to look for, because everything is short-term contracts, that it's nice to just have many options within a city to jump around and get many opportunities. So it's been great, and like it was a lot of hard work to get to this point, but I'm loving all the opportunities that I'm getting.
So I noticed you have a whole chapter in your book devoted to the animation pipeline. What is a pipeline, and why is it important for artists working in the industry to understand not just their own role in a production, but how production is made?
It is super important to know the animation pipeline. So the animation pipeline is the what goes in beginning to end to make the animated cartoon or short or commercial or movie or game. It basically tells you from the client giving the money to having the specific roles and how those roles affect each other. And it shows that you need an entire studio to facilitate making this production, and not one person can do everything. You need multiple people with different assets and different skills to work on specific things. And I feel like a lot of people who never worked in a studio before, or they're just used to doing everything themselves, it's important to know that there is, like, it's a team effort, but there's a series of process that it has to go through. And also making sure that every studio has a good pipeline is important, because you want to make sure everything runs smoothly, and you can tell pretty quickly when pipelines aren't that strong.
Are there common misconceptions that people outside of the animation industry have about how an episode of an animated TV series is made?
I think um, back in the day, illustration and animation went hand in hand. Like, if you want to animate, you have to be a good illustrator. And that's kind of split a little bit, especially for me, where before I went to animation school, I had no art background whatsoever, no portfolio, didn't draw. I played sports the whole time. So today, a lot of the animation, I'm using the program to help me move the character, using deformers, getting everything, and then I'll draw a hand or two, or I'll draw a custom pose for the torso. But there's not that much drawing that's involved, and a lot of productions in Canada and just basically anything on TV is a lot of 2D puppeted cutout. So it kind of works in your favor, where it's a lot of posing the parts to getting it to look like it's a new drawing, but really you're just moving parts around. And it's very tedious, and that's why a lot of people don't have the patience for it, but I've been able to master it, and I love doing it. So that's one thing, that nowadays the actual amount of drawing that people think of, like back in the day at Disney when it's on paper, it's not like that anymore. And I even get some people like, so is it on paper still or computer? Like, how do you, like, they don't know like the process. So that's one thing. And another thing is that, especially when I graduated university, and I would have people just randomly find me online, and they're like, "Oh, I want to hire you to do a cartoon. Can you do the animatic? Can you do the storyboards? Can you do everything?" And they think you're an animation artist, so you're the go-to to make everything happen. But that's not the case. Yes, in school you learn everything, which is really valuable to know, but everything isn't done by one person. Like, there are multiple roles for the team, and that goes back to knowing the production pipeline, to know that whose jobs are specific to what part of making the cartoon.
Yeah. Um, in the book, you mentioned that there was a point where you were hired into a production and given the option to extend, uh, but you felt that the role wasn't really one that was right for you. How do you say no to a job offer?
This wasn't part of. We didn't rehearse this, Mike. You're throwing me a curveball here. No, that's a great thing. Okay, so I was working for a studio, and I was working on one show. It finished. I worked onto another show, and then that finished. They wanted me to go back to the original show, and I kind of thought of myself where it felt like I was taking a back step, where I always want to keep progressing, and in my mind, working on new things is progressing. So to be asked to work on something I already worked on, it made me start thinking like, okay, this is more. It was a 1 year contract. It's like nowadays people would die for a 1 year stability contract. And I thought I can go back and do the same routine over, or I can say, you know what, I'm just going to look for other opportunities. And I was talking to other people on the team, and I was like, how do you feel about working on going back to the show? And they're like, I don't really want to do it, but that's the only show available. And I would talk to a lot of people, and a lot of people weren't happy about it. So I thought, like, why would I want to follow what everyone's doing and feel like that's my only option? And that, like, kind of like, that didn't sit well for me. That's like, this is your only option if you want to keep earning money. Like, this is the show you have to do. And then it kind of went to like, oh yeah, this is work. This is a company kind of thing. So I like thought long and hard, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to follow the stereotype of like, this is what you have to do even if you're not thrilled about it, and you should always have joy for everything you're working on. So I HR called me in, and they're like, okay, here's next steps. And then I was just like, I talked to the producer, and I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't want to do it. Like, I'm just going to look out. And they were like, whoa, because there was like a curveball, because they really relied on me for like when people were slowing down, and like I would take on more work, and like I was really like a strong piece of the team. And I was just like, I don't feel like working on it. Like, I wanna explore other options. And a lot of people don't have that luxury, because it's like, they got to pay their bills, they got mortgages, they have kids. And I was lucky to be in a position where it's like, maybe I'll just pick up some freelance somewhere else, or maybe I'll just start interviewing for another studio. So yeah, it's tricky, but you should never feel like you have to do something. You should always want to do it. You should always still have the passion, and you should never be like, feel like you're chained to the job and to the industry.
Yeah, I saw we got a question in the chat about animation schools.
Ooh.
And before I get to that, I wanted to ask you, how important is attending an animation program for working in the animation industry?
I feel like all the deans and chairs of animations are like leaning in, like, yes, say the right answer. Um, okay, should you go to art school, or should you not go to art school, learn everything yourself? I am very much 50-50 on this. And I had someone recently like ask me, like, do I put money into a 4 year school and like get a bachelor's, or do I just take 3 months and like grind out doing tutorials and really mastering it? Right now, everything that I'm doing, using Toon Boom, using these character rigs, every character rig is different for each show, doing like the formalic animation that I'm doing on the characters for web series and TV, and that kind of like that animation that sits well with a lot of people, that looks good and complements a lot of things. All this I learned on my own. None of this stuff that I'm doing today I learned in school. And I watched tutorials, I got textbooks, and working on multiple shows and getting in that snowball effect, I picked up skills from each show and each project and implemented into the next one. Do I think going to animation school is important still today? I do, because you need that foundation of having a schedule and like progressing throughout and having the goal of getting a degree, and having that, like, okay, you don't have anything to do in the morning, but you have class at 3 o'clock, so get through your homework and then go to class, and then you have to be in class and work with the other people in your class and listening to the teacher give you instructions and getting the feedback and like the criticism and critiques on your work and improving them. That's really valuable, because when you're in school and it's like, okay, here's my assignment, and then you get critiques on it. That happens when you're at the studio. You work on something, the supervisor gives you revs back, you have to do it. So getting that experience in school helps you be okay and deal with it when you're in the industry. And the school, if you're going to a well-known school, they have alumni working in the industry, so they can connect you to give you more information or help you get a job. Or for the graduating class, the school would do like a screening of everyone's films, and they'll invite people from the industry. So it's valuable to have the school help you out and give you those connections and show you ways into the industry. But are you going to be 100% ready for the industry? Of course not. And that's kind of the gap of information that I found in the industry, and that's what I'm trying to help out with my book. But everything that you learn in animation school is valuable, but you're always going to need more. There's always going to be more information needed.
Yeah, there are definitely clear advantages to formal training and developing your skills around peers. But I can also say that Toon Boom has commissioned work from artists who didn't go to school for animation. So if you did take a longer route to get here, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're out of luck. One of our guests in the chat has asked, would you be interested in sharing your animation experience with schools? So you have experience that the industry is a little bit different than what you learned in classes, and would you want to find a way to bring that back into classrooms?
Yeah, I've been doing kind of like a little bit book tour kind of with schools, and I've been reaching out, and even with I went to the Art Institute of Boston, which was tied with Lesley University. I'm always in touch with my past teachers and professors, and I'll do Q&As with the students, and I'll do like a little screen share, and I'll show some of my animation, I'll show the rigs, and I try to answer as much questions. But yeah, it is important to me I want to give back, because I think of when I graduated how I didn't have much help at all. And I failed animation tests. I had not strong portfolios. I didn't do well in interviews. So I had my bumps in the road, and then I just kept learning from trial and error, but kept with it. So I am very adamant of trying to give back, whether it's students in school or someone like that just entered the industry and they still like are getting into the groove.
Yeah. In your book, you mentioned the importance of resumes and portfolios. You actually have 2 chapters dedicated to that. So why do you think it can be challenging for artists who are very talented at storytelling with fictional characters to express the real work that they do to potential employers?
It's hard. It's difficult because you want to stand out from everyone else, but certain ways, like I know some people I've seen, they'll like draw characters on their resume, or they'll make their resume super like cool looking, but then studios hate that because the format and layout isn't well enough for them to scan and read. um, and it's tough to stand out. One thing for me, what I did, let me see if I can find it. Um, I got business cards. So this is a page from my book. One thing I did was to stand out. On the back of my business card, I put the characters that I've worked on from previous shows, and I put it on the card. So then when I give my card, that person might lose my card. That person might not have the time to visit my portfolio. But if they see on the back of the card, oh, he's worked on a lot of shows because he has a lot of characters, it's like a visual representation of my career and what I'm capable of working on and what I do. So it kind of like that sticks in their brain, and they can see my level of experience just from that. So that's one way that I've really, and I've had some bad looking business cards before, so I'm really happy with this card. And you have a hit when people are like, can I have another card or something like that. So that's one way. I don't know, did that answer the full your question?
Yeah, I think that did.
Okay.
Um, what are some ways that you find opportunities or studios that you can apply to? And what kind of research can you do?
So research is really, really important because my class, when I was in Boston, the kids, the students, they would just say, "Okay, here's the three studios in the city. I'm just gonna keep applying to those because I live in the area and those are the only ones I know." And then it's like you apply. Oh, we can't hire. Okay, I'm gonna wait 3 months and I'm gonna do a part-time job, and then I'm gonna apply again, and then they just keep failing, and that's a terrible thing to keep doing. So one thing I did, and I have another chapter just based on research because it's so important. First, I Google search animation studios all over, whatever comes up, and then I add it to like a folder on my Bookmarks bar. So then I find a studio, click on it, see the work, and I'm like, okay, this is like medical stuff. Throw it out. Oh, this is like commercials and um, explainer videos. Throw it out. It's like, oh, here's cartoony stuff. Okay, let me save it. And then I'll start to save everything, and then I'm like, really, this is like, everyone's gonna know how much OCD I have now because of this. They're like, this is too technical. Um, so I searched everything. Then I'll make a spreadsheet, and I'll put everything in the spreadsheet on like Excel. I'll be like, here's the studio name, here's where it's located. Um, this is the date when I applied. Someone got back to me. This is the HR manager's email, and I'll keep notes, and I'll keep everything organized, and I'll put like what shows they worked on. Um, so that's like the organization side, and just common things like watching a cartoon on TV and being like, oh, I really like this cartoon. I would be a good match. Let me go to the end credits and let me see what was the studio that worked on it. Let me see the names of some of like the directors or supervisors on. And then let me go on LinkedIn and connect with those studios and follow those studios for updates. Those are like all the things I did. And this is like casting a wide net and just being open-minded that you might have to travel or you might have to freelance for a studio across the country with different time zones, and just applying to those same studios in your town and not hearing back, and then saying like, okay, I haven't heard back, now I have to work a regular part-time job just to like pay the bills as I wait until the next time I apply. Like, that's not a healthy way to go. So it's kind of funny because I growing up, I love sports. So it's like when I think of a sports team like New England Patriots, they play at Gillette Stadium. It's in Foxborough. Like I can remember that stuff off the top of my head. The head coach is Bill Belichick, and they have this many like trophies. So if I'm a fan of sports and I can think of the name of the team, the key players, if I'm going to be in the animation industry and this is not a job, this is my career, I want to make it a point where I know the studio's name, I know where they're located, I know maybe some directors' names, and I know the shows that they work on. And knowing what everyone is working on and when shows are going to end, when other studios are hiring, and things like that, it's really helpful and it makes easy transitions to where you built that connections from the searching to then like, hey, I remember a few months ago you told me a new show is going to be starting in December. I want to apply for that. It's like, okay, cool. So it's definitely knowing the game and knowing how all the parts move together and making it a priority is really important.
We got an excellent question in the chat just now, which is how important is it to focus on a specific skill in animation, like rigging or compositing? And are there skills that are more likely to get a foot in the door?
In when you're in school, everyone's in school, you kind of learn everything, which is helpful. And I know me, I was like, I just want to get right to the animation because that's what I was so crazy and adamant about. But I've worked with people who they are a character rigger, and I'm like, do you know they know way more about rigging than I do, and I deal with the rig while I'm animating. And I'm like, where did you go to school? And they're like, oh, I went to Sheridan or any like well-known school for animation. And I was like, so why aren't you an animator? And they're like, because my animation sucks. They're like, I know the Toon Boom very well, and I know the technicality that goes into like building the rig, but my animation skills aren't that good. So I just focus my portfolio more on the rigging side, and that helped me get a job when there's an opening. And that's kind of the misconception everyone has. They go to school for animation and they think I need to be an animator, but there's so many different routes where like your animation isn't that good, but your character design is really good, or your animation isn't good, but you know how to rig really well, or you know how to storyboard really well. So it's good to have an understanding of everything, but there's still openings for other roles. And that's one thing that I try to focus in my book, Your Animated Journey, is that no matter if you go to school for 3D animation, if you go to school for 2D animation, you still have to go through an interview. You still have to take a test, whether it's a rigging test, a storyboard test. You still have to, deal with like being professional and dealing with quotas in studios. And that's the gap that I try to fill, that these are things that are just as important. You can have amazing rigs, but if you don't know how to communicate well in an interview, you're not going to get the job. And really quick, one thing that comes to mind is when I had my first internship, I started and I asked the director, I was like, why did you hire me for the internship? And he's like, I saw your portfolio, you knew what you were doing, and you seem normal. And I was like, I seem normal. And I was like, can you elaborate? And he's like, absolutely. He was like, so I'll get resumes, I'll get portfolios for many different positions. Amazing portfolio, unbelievable. And he's like, I want to talk to this person right now. Let's get them in. They come into the interview. They're not. They can't. They don't make eye contact. They're very shy. They didn't dress well. They're mumbling. They're like really nervous. And then it's just like, I don't want to work with this person, even though their portfolio is amazing and they're so talented. It's like there's still that criteria of like, I need someone who's gonna come in and have positive attitude, communicate with others, and work well within the studio, within the group. So when I graduated school, I had so much anxiety because I was like, my portfolio sucks, and here's people from CalArts with like Pixar ready portfolios and student films, but I was missing out that my personality and my charm and my professionalism and playing all these sports, I have experience like being on a team and like working with others, that excelled me. So it's kind of like you gotta like get a nice balance and show off that you're an all around, not just artist, you're an all around awesome person, to for them to want to work with you. And I feel like focusing on yourself and who you are will help you get through the door, rather than focusing countless hours and months on your work and it's just the same habits and mistakes that have been like throughout your whole portfolio.
Yeah, being easy to work with and accepting feedback really well can definitely put you ahead. I
How many
noticed another
viewers are we up
question.
to?
That's a good question. I actually don't have visibility on
I
that
don't have
on my
visibility.
side of it. That's a question
Derek?
for Derek. Um, but we have a question from another person in the chat who's asking if you really want to work for a company, how often should you apply to those companies? And is it okay to keep applying to the company that you want to get into?
Yes. I mean, I worked for Guru. I went to their stand at the job fair multiple times and was told no multiple times because I was American. And then finally, when I moved to Toronto through Taffy, I met with someone that works there. And even when I like meet people from other studios, I don't really like talk about animation. I'm not like, oh, you work there? Like, I need a job. Can I get a job? It's like, we'll talk about completely other stuff. And then they just remember me as like, oh, yeah, we had like good conversations about nothing related animation. And then I go to their job fair, show my portfolio, and then it's like, okay, we're going to give you an animation test to take. And then even though they've like said no multiple times, they ask like, "Oh yeah, you were American. Do you have like work permit or permanent residency now?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "Okay, good." So even though they told me no multiple times, now that I have status that I can work in Canada, now they're open to it. And then I took the test, I passed the test, and I got it. And that was like with Guru, same thing with like DHL, Brain. I applied multiple times. I actually applied to WildBrain and I took two tests. One was to be like a rigger and one was to be a layout artist. I failed the rigging test, but I passed the layout test and then I got a job through that. So I got a no and a yes at the same time. So keep applying but try to space it out and try to find out strategic times of when to apply. And that would be like knowing, like connecting with the recruiter on LinkedIn. They'll post like, we have a new show starting. They're not going to look for animators right away. They're going to look for the storyboard artists first. And then once you see a job posting for storyboard artists, know that, okay, in a few months, then they're going to be asking for animators because once they have the storyboards done, they need the animators. And even sometimes when I know a show is like halfway through production, I'll apply and be like, I know you're halfway through, but do you need an extra hand? And they're like, yeah, actually, we are like missing deadlines and we heard you're really fast. Like, yeah, you can come on and take on a few seconds and help us out. So it's just knowing the time and knowing the right people to communicate with that you're available and that you want to be a part of it. But don't let the no stop you. I heard no so many times because I was American, and one day I got the yes and I got a work permit and now I'm here and it's been amazing opportunities.
So, Joshua, we have about 10 minutes left. Why don't we go back and say again, what is the name of your book?
Oh, the name of my book is Your Anime Journey. Hold on, I'll pull up. So here's a copy of my book right here. So I got Your Anime Journey. So I self-published. I got Joel Mackenzie, who's an amazing artist. He's one of my favorite artists. He did the cover. and this is the bonus edition, and it has more Q&As than the regular edition. So table of contents, art school, resumes, portfolio, looking for employment, the hiring process, using social media, work. And then I feel like there's so many times where, yes, there's resources with like getting your portfolio ready and resume, but then you start working and it's like, I didn't know about quota. Like I didn't know about 2-week deadlines to do an episode. Or it's like, oh, I just started working, but it's like, how do you move up? How do you get promoted? So I kind of break that wall, and then I keep telling the story. I keep giving that information to people. And then things about like money, like how much you should be charging, working in Canada. And then the Q&A, the gem of the book, these are all the people that I have. So that's pretty much the book, just the index. And then even inside, I have like really great artwork from the artists that did the Q&As. They were really awesome at providing a lot of their artwork to make the book shine. The website is just youranimatedjourney.com. And right now, I'm running a back-to-school sale. So if you put in that promo code, you'll get 15% off. So any students for the rest of September, you can hop on that. But yeah, that's pretty much the book. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm really adamant of just giving back to the industry. And if my one goal, if someone can read this book, use the techniques and the skills, and implement it into what they're doing, and they're able to get a job, I'll be happy. If one person can get a job from reading this book, that's a goal complete for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. Where can our audience find you online?
Online, so my Instagram is at thatkidpinker. Because I always get people who are like, "Who's that kid?" And it's like, "Oh, Pinker, Josh Pinker." So it's that kid Pinker, and my portfolio is pinkerart.com. That's my animation professional stuff. And you can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in my name. My email, joshpinker@yahoo.com. If you get the book and you still have more questions, please email me, and I'll be happy to go into more detail and just answer any more things, look at work, look at portfolios. I'll be happy to do it. Any way I can give back.
All right. Joshua, thank you so much for joining us in today's discussion. If you are an artist who is interested in picking up skills for storyboarding, rigging, and animating characters, or traditional animation, or even just applying what you learned to do in other software to Harmony and Storyboard Pro, you can find instructor-led training sessions at toonboom.com/training. Registration for fall courses closes soon, so if you were waiting to register, there's no time to waste. Thank you for joining us, and until next time.